All right. I need everyone in here to stand up. Let's all stand up.
All right.
I need y'all to repeat after me.
Okay.
I'm making power moves. Let me hear you.
I'm making power moves.
I don't hear that you making power moves. I need to feel that. We're gonna take it back to church, right? Tomorrow is Sunday. I need to hear it. I'm making power moves.
I'm making power moves.
Yes. Now turn to the person next to you and say, you are making power moves.
You are making power moves.
Say it one more time.
You are making power moves.
Yes, ladies. Give yourself a round of applause. Okay. So, my name is Netta Jenkins. I'm head of diversity and inclusion for a company called IAC Applications, who represents Applon, which is a mobile division, Ask Applications, which is a browser division, and Slimware, which is a desktop and utilities division. And I am here with the lovely Chloe Rice. Like Vanessa was saying, she is co-founder of We Build Black, co-founder of Color for Code, and she's a software engineer for Shopify. So I'm sure we're all wondering, how the hell do you do it? But we're gonna get to that in just a moment. But what I wanna start off with is something that I'm truly fascinated about, which is early childhood. I think early childhood can have, a positive impact on our lives and a negative impact. So how has that impacted your life?
Start from the beginning.
Yes.
So I grew up in Oakland. But I moved around a lot, and I have a big family. And I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the second youngest. So I did a lot of observation. Right? I learned from other people's mistakes. Shout out to my big sisters. And my childhood was kind of split off into 2 different sections, right? I grew up in this big city, and then when I was 12, I moved to the middle of nowhere, to a place called Poole, where I was the only black girl there. So, yeah, there's a lot there. But at the end of the day, through observation and kind of feeling a little bit isolated, I always felt like I was watching things from the outside. So I kind of felt like I was narrating my own movie, if you will. So I was a dreamer.
Okay, awesome. And now I know a little secret that many don't know. You were in the fashion industry, or you thought you were going to be a fashion star. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So, like I said, I was a dreamer kid, and I knew that I wanted to move to New York and take over whatever that was going to look like. And by the time that I was in high school, I decided that was going to be the fashion industry. I had a lot of problems as a tall person, as a black woman, as a woman, buying clothes that fit me. So from the time that I was in 8th grade, I started sewing and making my own stuff. And by the time that I was 16, I was pretty much done with high school, but I stayed for my senior year just to finish it out with everybody. And I started going to college to take fashion classes to prepare for the school that I wanted to get into, which was the only school that I applied to. And that was a poor decision because I didn't get in. That was FIT. Shout out to FIT for the denial and then the wait list. But what ended up happening is that I went to community college with the idea that I was going to get my degree in 1 year. I was going to waste that year before I could apply again, which was the plan. And what ended up happening is I got my degree in apparel design and production, and I had all of these plans in my head, right, since I was a kid, of exactly the empire that I was going to build. But after acquiring a lot of debt, I ended up not moving to New York when I planned to, because it was 2008 when I graduated and the world kind of ended. Right, the recession started. So what ended up happening is that I started working at a plant nursery in a big box store. So I went from being the person with the super perm, right, just iron flat hair, 4-inch heels, selling $400, $500, $1,000 shoes at Nordstrom and being super fancy and knowing exactly what I was going to do, to not knowing what my next move was going to be and loading up bags of soil into people's cars. And what it ended up being is that I found gratitude in being where I was instead of where I was planning to be. And I kind of pivoted. I realized that I cared about the environment and the world that was around me, and I went back to school for environmental science. And I acquired some more debt.
Right, so tell us about that. What was that moment for you when you entered tech? What was that sort of pivotal moment?
So after I decided that I was not necessarily going to pursue fashion, at least right off the bat, it was something that was still in the back of my head. I was in horticulture, and I was just kind of complacent at that point. I was a little bit jaded, and I was just like in survival mode, just paying my bills and working 7 days a week. And then I had a family emergency that kind of forced me out of that complacency because I had to quit my jobs. And what ended up happening is that I was able to spend all my free time after that kind of settled down into teaching myself how to code. I'd been doing that for a few years because I actually did start my clothing company, but I ran out of money. And that's when I started to work at a plant nursery again. And when I decided that I wasn't going to go back to working 7 days a week after that family emergency, that I was going to change careers into tech. And I made a plan, like I always do, but I actually followed through on that plan. I moved to New York, and I found my people right away. After the boot camp that I went to, where I was the only black girl in the cohort, I started going to the Black Software Engineers of New York meetup. I met Devin, I met Alex, I met Jerome, and then we kind of just started like thinking about how we're going to make these ideas that we've all been having and into a reality, into a bigger community than just some Saturday meetups. Yeah.
Now, being a woman of color, we've all faced so many different obstacles and challenges. What challenge have you faced?
Being a black woman in tech is it's a strange thing, but it's not something that we're not used to already, right? We're unfortunately, by the time that we're in adulthood, we're used to being the only black woman in a certain room. And so being in that space in a new industry is funny only because of the timing, right? We're at a time where diversity and inclusion is at the top of conversation.
Right.
And that pivotal moment, combined with the work that I'm doing with We Build Black right now, has been helping me through the fact that I am the only black woman on my team. I am one of 3 black women in my entire UX department. So it's something that I wouldn't say that it's limited my trajectory at all.
Right.
Like I said, I've just begun really to move into the career that I've set out for myself. And kind of what I think was talked about in the third panel was making your own table. And so that's what I'm doing. And that's what you're all doing, being here.
Yeah, so you're definitely making your own table because you have so much that's going on right now. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind We Build Black.
I think there's a lot of talk of the collective economy, the black economy in general, kind of holds up a lot of the United States. And if we as black women, as black people, are not just working our way up in our careers in tech, but starting companies and building each other up, we're not going to get anywhere. So the idea behind We Build Black is that we're not even just pulling up a seat to a table or building our own table, but we're helping other people get their ideas off of the ground. So we've got kind of 3 different trajectories that we're going in right now. And that's education, entrepreneurship, and then community, which is where Mavens IO comes in.
Right, and now you're co-founder for Color for Code as well. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind that as well.
So Color for Code kind of came out of a time where I was still in transition between my previous career and getting into actually being a developer that was being paid to develop. So I just graduated from a boot camp. I had the skills, but I didn't have the pedigree to go with it. So on paper, it didn't look like I belonged here. And that's something that being in a room of developers at any given hackathon or whatever, you already kind of feel that way as a Black woman. So I found my community, I found my people at this meetup, the Black Software Engineers in New York. And Devin, the founder of that meetup, reached out because he was having a lot of recruiters and a lot of companies reach out to him and send jobs because they're all trying to bring us in. But what ended up happening is that it was a lot of work trying to figure out, okay, like I know this person's looking for a job, I know that person's looking for a job. So it really was like a means to an end to make it easier for us to make sure that we were providing the space for our community to get into the careers or make the career moves that they needed to make. And what ended up happening is that it turned into this job board that is not just for our meetup group, but for really the rest of the country and the world. So.
Right. And then what's your ultimate vision for both organizations? And were they started at the same time, or?
Yeah, actually, so really, it Color for Code itself turned into it was an idea that turned into a project that turned into a product. And so what that has ended up being is a model for how we can help other people do the same thing with their ideas. So one of the things that we just started was Build NG, which is an entrepreneurship and mentorship program where we're bringing on junior and mid-level developers to build an application that we were going to build ourselves, and give them that opportunity that I had when I was starting to build Color for Code, where I'm not just using the skills that I taught myself in a silo, but I'm doing it on a team and I'm building a production level product and doing the work of not just the development, but the actual entrepreneurship side of that thing. So giving developers that full business building experience from taking an idea to a project to a product and into a startup. So in my mind, We Build Black is going to be catalyzing entrepreneurship across the board through these community events. Build NG is going to be doing that literally by building startups. And with Color for Code, I hope that it becomes not just like a pipeline, but I don't know, I hope that it spurs other movements so that people aren't wondering how they're going to get into tech, how they're going to get from learning to code to having a career in building things or designing things or facilitating the production of these things. I didn't have a direct line, a direct path into tech, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people in this room are trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get from learning how to code to actually doing this, to building things and having people see those things and use them. And I think that through Color for Code, through this community that we're building, we're going to be lifting each other up. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we're all wondering, how do you do it all? How are you able to have a full-time job at Shopify and be co-founder for two organizations that are doing really well? How do you handle that? How do you manage that?
I'm still figuring that out. I definitely don't get as much sleep as I tell everybody else that they better be getting. Tell people a lot of things that they better be doing. I think actually the strange path that I took to get where I am prepared me for that. So when I told you that I went to college and I was working on getting my degree in 1 year, I was going to 3 different schools at the same time to beat the 18 unit limit that each school puts on you. And so taking 27 units at a time and working graveyard shifts at Longs or whatever it was that I was doing at any given period of time has prepared me for doing multiple things at the same time. So all of the experience that you've gathered outside of tech, inside of tech, wherever you are in your career, or wherever you are in your stage of entrepreneurship, is going to prepare you for what you're looking to do in the future.
Right. And what advice would you give a woman that's trying to start her business, and she's just unsure, or maybe she just has an idea and she's not sure what direction to go in? What advice would you give?
Well, first of all, find your people. I told you I've been dreaming about things and planning things since I was a kid. And had I been finding my people and taking action on those things, I would have been probably in a completely different place. And I'm very glad that I'm right here. But my biggest advice is find your people and also just tell everyone. Tell everyone what you're thinking. Tell everyone your ideas. Well, don't just give them away. Don't do that. Use your best judgment. But in general, you're not going to do it alone. I always try to do things by myself. It's never going to get done if I didn't do it. And that's bullshit. You need other people. You need other people to push you. You need other people to balance you out. And that's why I'm able to do all of this, because I'm not doing it alone.
Right.
I've got a team of other people that are pushing me, and we're pushing each other. So if you can create that kind of environment for yourself with the right people around you, you're going to get where you're wanting to go.
Now, do you have a mentor? And if so, how did you meet that person? How were you able to connect with that person?
I don't know if I have a mentor. I've always kind of mentored myself. I don't remember who it was that said, was that Georgie? Beat yourself up if you're not working towards your goals. So I've always been that kind of neurotic person that talks to myself. That you should all do that.
We all do.
But I would say their peer mentorship is a strong thing. You don't have to look above you or look to where you're trying to go and find a mentor there. People who are working on the same thing as you, that come from a different background, that have different strengths, that have different personality types, that don't wait until a thing is perfect before they start talking about it or showing that. That's. I don't actually remember the question that you asked me, but hopefully I answered it. Yeah.
So my last and final question is, where does Chloe see herself in the next 5 to 10 years? What will you be doing? What do you imagine yourself?
That's a really hard question. One thing that I hope that you take away is that technology is not just about development, right? It's not just about code. And you don't have to compartmentalize the different things that you want to do, or the different interests that you have, right? I'm a fashion designer, I am a farmer, I am a front-end developer, and I don't have to separate those things. I've decided not to separate those things anymore. So I see myself in 5 years. Well, first of all, starting that company, that clothing company that I've been talking about since I was, 12. That's going to happen. Hold me to that, please. It's ETHIIQ, Ethic, ethical clothing company. And I will be hopefully watching a whole bunch of other people continue to take this movement of community and building each other up and putting each other on outside of just New York. I hope that we're global in 5 years. I hope that we're building Black globally in 5 years.
We will be.
We will. Especially the people in this room. We're definitely going to support each other, right? Right? Can I have the energy? Okay. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. It was such a great time, chatting with you and learning about your experience. Thank you all for joining us.